Good morning. This is Matthew Kilford for thesoundarchitect.co.uk, and I'm going to be reviewing the Audient, there's my hand, Audient ID44. And I've realised actually, pretty much most of my life, I waffle more than the best of them. So I am going to be doing this today. I'm bringing in this bad boy, and I'm doing this. This means that I can't really make a mistake. It scares the hell out of me, but I'm going to do it. It's counting down. You don't want to hear me go on for more than 10 minutes. I don't want to hear myself go on for more than 10 minutes. So let's just get this review going. I am an Audient user. I use an ID22, have done for quite a few years. So I was really interested to see if the ID44 would help me with my workflow. So I'm going to take you through the unit, and I'm going to show you how I use it. I'm primarily a singer-songwriter, so I'm using guitars and vocals, but I'm also using sample instruments in the box, and then sometimes I'm doing kind of using orchestral samples and things for other kind of things. So I can show you why I use the Audient ID44 for that. So here we go. So you can see here there are 4 mic inputs at the top. You'll see that. Hopefully you can see this, but I'm not using the first 2 because at the front here there are 2 DIs. They're JFET DIs that Audient wax lyrical about, and they are really, really good. If you have microphones plugged into 1 and 2, as soon as you plug in the JFETs, like a guitar or a bass into it, it will cancel out the microphone inputs. So I like that I can just keep 1 and 2 free for when I want to plug guitars and basses in. Whether I'm by myself or if someone else is coming around to play some parts on a song or something. So 3 and 4 then has 2 mics set up permanently. So I have one set up for an acoustic guitar, and then I have one for a vocal, for my main vocal. You can see that every mic channel has phantom power, and then it has a little pad, and it has a low cut rumble switch as well. Just if you have like a Jumanji Stampede coming past you at 11 in the morning, that really, really helps for that. On the right hand side, you have 2 headphone inputs, 2 headphone controls there. The inputs are here at the front again, just like the JFETs on this side. The DIs, if you don't know what JFET is, a type of DI that Audient that use. So the headphone outputs are great. I've got a pair of KRKs headphones that I use when they're closed back, so when I'm recording, and then I use not so much anymore, but I've got a pair of Sennheiser 650s, and both work absolutely fine in there for levels and everything. Quickly going back to the mic pre's, they have a nice they do have a slight a coloured sound to them, whatever you want to make of that, really. The reason why I say that is because trying the RME Babyface, I realised how clean those preamps are. Now, some people will want that, but what I like is having a little bit more of a vintage tone. I know these mic pre's they're using in all of their range, Audient, their flagship desk and everything. It's also worth mentioning that if you want to bring in your own compressors and EQs or any hardware, you can use their send and returns that they have here on their inputs 1 and 2. If you want to bypass the preamps and create your own vocal chain, which is really, really handy. Also on the outputs here, it's worth mentioning it has the usual kind of SPDIFs outs if you want to connect up an extra set of mic pre's. So you can add up to 16 extra channels, I think. I'm never going to use that because I'm quite happy with the amount of inputs I've got, but I know there are people who will be using that and will know about it. It's all there on Audient's site, and I mentioned it slightly in the review. What I do love is that you have 2 sets of monitor outputs. So I have my main set of focal speakers that I use and love, focal shapes, which are fantastic, and then I have like a boombox on the side that I switch to, and I want to. Obviously I'll go into that now. So you have these 3 buttons here, which are my favorite part of the unit. You have this one, you can assign them to anything, but I have the top one is a mono button, so we know the importance of mono when you're mixing. I know people use it for obviously recording and things as well, and they're miking things up. But yeah, I'm using it mainly as that for mixing, referencing, and such. And then the second button I have is I think Harry from Audient talks about it. It's being the sides. It's kind of like a phase reverse, but you're hearing just the sides of a track. It's fantastic to listen to songs that you love and hearing reverbs and delays. And also interesting I found recently on a lot of orchestral stuff, you always hear about how the bass should be in the middle, but I've noticed recently a lot of the low end on the percussion and things is sometimes way out to the sides, and a lot of us are always kind of using mid-side EQ, which is something you might find yourself getting into a bit more with this button. But we're using mid-side EQ and cutting everything out low end out and keeping it keeping it in the middle, and then doing the opposite. But sometimes that's not always the case, and so it's good to listen to tracks that you love and find out what they're doing. The third button is the alt speaker, so that means when I push that, it changes from my main monitors to my little boombox. And then the talkback button is I'm not really going to use it, but it's a clever little tool. So not only can you assign it to a microphone that you plug in there, you can also assign your inbuilt mic on your iMac or your MacBook or PC inbuilt mic, whatever you're using. I'm a Mac guy, so for my sins. So I could use it for my MacBook if I was recording in one room and there was a singer in another room. Really, really handy for that. You can set up different cues and everything on the ID mixer, which again, the ID mixer it's more in depth than it used to be before. There is some more options built in there, and for routing and headphone mixes and all that business. But a lot of the time, I'm not using it. It's on, it's working. I don't have to touch it, and I think that's important. Not everyone needs to use the ID mixer. It's just there doing its job in the background. But if you do need to, it has all the ability to options to get you going and creating the mixes you want for vocalists or and such. You know what I'm talking about. The three buttons on the front are we've got 3 minutes left. The three buttons on the front are a cut switch for the main out, which is obviously really, really handy, especially when listening to my music. And then there is just a dim button to turn it down a certain amount. You can adjust that. You can also adjust, I should say, on the alt speaker button, you can adjust the output on that. So if you've got like a pair of speakers that don't have much output, you can send more signal to the alt speakers through there, which is very clever. And then you have the ID button. Now I'm going to quickly demonstrate what the ID button does. When we put in the ID button, that's not the ID button, that's the ID button. And let's say I'm going to bring up this little MIDI alchemy track here. The time is gone, don't worry. There he is. And I'm going to use this scroll wheel to basically automate things on the fly. So hopefully if I play something in here, this is going to be the most amazing piece of music you've heard in the past 4 seconds. So I'm just going to hover my mouse over there and I'm just going to turn the wheel, and straight away it's automating it. I'll do it with the cutoff as well. So if I just hover over there, let's do a different chord. It's a better chord, and I'm just going to use the cutoff. So I'm not going to click anything. The scroll wheel will just pick up on that. Really handy for synth stuff. Really handy for vocal automation as well. Riding faders. It works really well. I don't talk about it too much in the written review, but I'm using it more and more, which I'm starting to really find a use for it. I will say that in terms of things like firmware and stuff, I must admit I've had, since the written review, I've had one problem where the JFET was, one of the DI inputs something happened, so I reinstalled the firmware. It took like a couple of minutes, and now it's all working fine. This unit has been running pretty smoothly, this particular one, and I think in terms of the conclusion, there's only one other thing that I would prefer. On the ID22, look at this, 30 seconds, I'm going to go over it. I'm really sorry. And there will be I might have to stop it because it might give a large bell sound, which could be annoying. But the scroll wheel is kind of infinite. It just keeps going round. Whereas I kind of like to have a little marker. So the ID22 had that. It just had a volume control, start to finish, and I could pick my point. So when I'm listening at speaker volume, it's always there, so I know where I'm at. Having said that, wait for it. I'm going to pause it because I don't want that. There we go. The chime didn't go off. On the scroll wheel, you can, if you'll notice when I turn, you'll see that tells you what your level is at. Your relative level, I guess. So I know that I tend to have mine about, where are we? I tend to have mine about there. So I know that way. So it's nice that they thought of that. But I must admit, I do prefer, the other wheel to just the little marker. I know it sounds really funny. It's just the way my feeble brain works. But then you wouldn't get the scroll wheel if you had that. So you have to sort of pros and cons, swings and roundabouts, all that business. So on the whole, I'm really impressed with it. It's really helped my workflow. I'm working quicker, and when I'm not talking, and it's, I think that covers everything. There are a few ways you can go down. I'll talk for one more minute. So again, I apologize. There are Focusrite units that are a little bit cheaper, and they have similar spec stuff going on, but not quite as many, what would you say, little functions and things, especially in terms of dedicated DIs. And then just the look of it, having the Focusrite ones sit on the front, and they're sort of facing outwards, whereas this, having this, looking up at you is I much prefer this. And I would say that because of the Audient is around about £500, that's the approximate price, isn't it? When you're looking at the retail price. If you then go higher, you're looking at something like an Apogee Quartet, which is, I'm never going to go down that road for that kind of money. The more obvious way would be down the UAD route. The problem is, if you go down that, most people end up getting like a solo or a duo when it comes to the UAD stuff, like the Apollo Twins, and they run out of space so quickly on those UAD plugins. So you end up having to get the quad, which is, getting on for 1,100-1,200 quid. So you're in a different ball game. And the fact that you then, you have to keep buying the plugins, if you've got the money and they are great and your plugins are amazing, but this is not really aimed at that market. This is for, this is £500. We're looking at, £700 cheaper. Audient are a great company, really, really good customer service when chatting to them about certain things. And I can't kind of say there's anything else that really matches it for the price. So I think it's already won a couple of awards as well. So if you enjoyed that review, I've gone over 10 minutes, I'm so annoyed with myself, then you can see the written review at soundarchitect.co.uk. You can get hold of Sound Architect on Facebook. So that's facebook.com/thesoundarchitect.co.uk. Funny that. And then you've got them on Twitter at Sound Design UK. They're on YouTube at Sound Design UK. And then they're even on Instagram now, I think, Sound Architect Official. So that's worth checking out. I always prefer Instagram than Facebook a lot of the time. There's just less faff going on. And then if you want to find me, I'm at Matthew Kilford. That would be on Instagram or on Twitter, not so much on Facebook, as you probably just realised. So any questions, leave comments below. Don't be too hard on me. I've got a bit of a cold and I've got a 6-month-old baby, so I've not had much sleep in 6 months. Funny that. Okay, thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.